years ago, a wave of vitamin A deficiency hit many parts of the globe. The deficiency was so severe that it resulted in several deaths within no time. What could have been done to crack this problem? Scientists soon realized that the staple food of most of the areas hit by this disaster was rice. They took efforts to modify rice in such a way that it produced the necessary compound in the body when consumed. With this, the concept of golden rice emerged. It's a variety of rice that's capable of biosynthesizing beta-carotene, which is a precursor of vitamin A. When consumed, the beta-carotene is readily converted to vitamin A in the body, thus saving uncountable lives. Doesn't this sound like science fiction? It definitely does, but this has actually happened. Let me make it more interesting. Imagine there's one single plant that has potatoes in the root and tomatoes at the shoot. Do you think this is possible? Of course it is. This variety is called Pomato, a plant that bears two edible parts in the same body. And now for the last one. Imagine you're in a dark room and suddenly you find a fluorescently glowing mice running around. Do you think this kind of glowing mice exists? Yes, they do. The concept of fluorescent mice is no longer fiction because there are transgenic mice which glow with fluorescence. Why are we looking at these examples? We know that computers run on codes, and so do our bodies. Just like there are specific codes for running a computer, we have specific codes for organisms' body design. And any change in these codes can give us miraculous results like the golden rice, the Pomato plant, and the glowing mice. And the study of all these wonderful concepts is nothing but genetics. We have come across this term several times. Genetics finds applications not only in modern-day research, but even answers various queries that pop up in our minds. Many of us assume that genetics is only about the characters passed on to the children from their parents. But is it as simple as that? And even if we know or assume things, it is important to ask the question, why? For instance, have you ever wondered why an apple tree only gives rice to another apple tree? Why don't we get a banana or a mango tree from it? Why does a cat give birth to only a kitten? And why do humans give birth to humans only? Well, you may say that the answer is nature. Okay, so if a human gives birth to another human, then why are those two not exactly the same? Why do we find each individual unique? And what makes the kid strikingly different from his or her parents? Well, there are endless questions that pop up in our minds. And how do we find answers to them? That's where the branch of genetics comes into play. In this lesson and in the upcoming ones, let's get introduced to this branch and try answering all the questions that pop up in our minds about the living world around us. To begin with, let's define genetics. In simple terms, it can be defined as the branch of biology that deals with heredity and genetic variation. Now you may wonder, what do these two terms mean? To begin our studies on genetics, we need to first understand a few terms in detail. Let's begin with understanding what heredity is. Here's one happy family. Now, if we observe this kid, he has a few features like his dad and a few like his mum. That is because he has got these features from each parent. This passing of traits or characters from one generation to the other is nothing but heredity. So we can define heredity as passing of traits from parents to their offspring. Now, what do we exactly mean by traits and characters? It's simple. In this case, the child has black-colored eyes just like his mum. The father, however, has blue-colored eyes. Now here we have two different types of eye colors, black and blue. Similarly, there are many other colors of eyes that exist in nature. So the eye color is the character. The eye color can vary among the population of a particular species. On the other hand, the trait will be black or blue color of the eyes, which is exclusive for that particular individual. To take another example, height is a character, while tall or short are the traits. Hair color is a character, while black and blonde are the traits. The passing of traits from one generation to the other is called heredity. And what has been passed to the next generation is usually referred to as inheritance. Now tell me one thing. If this boy has inherited the traits from his parents, why is he not the exact copy of either of the parent? I mean, why does he look slightly different from both? The answer lies in the single term called variation. Isn't the term self-explanatory? As the name says, it means differences. So variations are the differences that make one organism different from its parents. As in the case, the boy has inherited a few traits from his mum and a few from his dad. But he is different from both. Thus, there are many variations in him. These basics in genetics are known to us now. But ever wondered who laid the foundations of this interesting subject? Who were the pioneers in genetics that helped us crack the code of life? Let's have a glance at the history of genetics in the upcoming part. This image of evolution is not new to us. But ever wondered how species evolved? How are a few factors eliminated and a few carried forward? Well, the answers are obtained when we combine evolutionary studies with genetics. Many scientists have been working on genetics since ages. But there was this one legendary figure who could answer why a green pea plant gave rise to another similar green pea plant. Let's get back in time to understand how the foundation of genetics were laid. Genetic studies were carried out since the classical era, wherein scientists like Aristotle and Hippocrates have put forth a few theories regarding how parental characters are passed to the next generation. However, a breakthrough was achieved when an Augustinian friar carried out remarkable experiments using garden pea plants and laid the foundations of modern-day genetics. It was around the 19th century that Gregor Johann Mendel, now known as the father of genetics, performed the experiments that led him to this path. Mendel, while working in a garden, wondered why the green pea plants with one particular trait gave rise to plants with the same trait. For example, plants with purple flowers gave rise to plants with purple flowers only. So why is this so? And why do white color flowered plants give plants with white color flowers only? And what will happen if these two varieties are crossed? With all these queries in mind, Mendel decided to carry out a few experiments that would help him find out all the answers. But where did he think all these experiments would take him? How did he think of beginning with the procedures? And what were the list of requirements he gathered? What could have been the possible conclusions? Let's try answering all these questions one by one. To begin with, let's understand why did Gregor Mendel choose Pisum sativum, commonly known as the green pea plant. Mendel knew that for his experiments, he would require a plant which is perennial and not annual. In literal terms, perennial means something that can last for a long time. Here it meant the plant that can grow and reproduce in a recurring fashion. Secondly, the plant should have a small life cycle. It should be able to grow quickly. Also, Mendel wanted a plant that would not require too many exclusive conditions to grow. Minimal requirements should suffice the growth of the plant. Most importantly, to understand the results of crossing different varieties better, Mendel required contrasting traits in the plants. That means one character should have two contrasting traits. For example, the flower color in green peas is purple and in some it's white. Purple and white are the contrasting traits that can help in the study. So which were the contrasting characters that Mendel found in the green pea plants? There were 7 pairs of contrasting characters in total chosen by Mendel in the plant. And here they are. The first character Mendel chose was height of the plant. The contrasting traits were tall and dwarf plants. Second character in the list was the color of the flower. The contrasting traits were purple-colored flowers and white-colored flowers. And the third character on the list was position of the flower. That could be axial or terminal. In simple words, axial means the flowers shoot off from the middle of the stem, and terminal means the flower is situated at the top of the plant stem. The next character chosen was shape of the seed. We know that green peas have 2 types of seeds. One type is round and smooth, while the other type is rough or wrinkled with scales. This was the next pair of contrasting traits. After the seed shape, we have the character of seed color. The contrasting traits in this are the green and yellow colors of the seeds. Similar to the seed color, the next character was pod color. A pod is nothing but a case that holds the plant's seeds. Here the 2 contrasting traits were green colored and yellow colored pods. And the last pair of contrasting character was that of pod shape. Green pea pods can either be inflated or constricted. Both these traits are contrasting. With these 7 pairs of contrasting characters, Mendel began his experiments. Little did he know that he was building the foundation of modern genetics. Let's have a look at what his experiments were and the conclusions he derived from them in the next part. We have taken a look at the 7 pairs of contrasting characters chosen by Gregor Mendel for his experiments on the green pea plant. So here's a table that gives us an idea of what the contrasting characters and their respective traits were. Now, can you guess how Mendel thought of this experiment? How was it exactly planned by Mendel? What was his aim? Well, Mendel thought of beginning with trying to understand what happens on crossing the plants with contrasting traits. Mendel, just like others, knew that a plant with purple flowers gives us another plant with purple flowers only. And it's the same case with a plant that has white-colored flowers. Now, Mendel was curious to know what will happen if a purple-flowered plant is crossed with the white-flowered variety. Ideally, the result has to be flowers with intermediate colors. But was that actually what Mendel got? Let's have a look at the results in detail. But before that, do you know how crossing is carried out? Well, the male and the female plants are selected first. Now, the pea plant, being bisexual, has both male and female reproductive parts in the same plant. So we can choose the purple flower to be male and the white flower to be female, or vice versa. Now, the female flower on the respective plant is emasculated first. So do you know what emasculation is? As the name suggests, masculine refers to male. So here, emasculation refers to the removal of male reproductive parts. Let's take these 2 flowers to understand the crossing process in detail. Now, the anther of this flower will be removed. Removal of anthers makes sure that the flower will not get self-pollinated. Now, this exclusive female flower is dusted with the pollen grains from this male flower, which ensures pollination. And the successful fertilization will be ensured when the plant develops flowers. This is how crossing is carried out. Now, let's get back to Mendel's experiments. Mendel crossed a plant with purple flowers and a plant with white flowers. He expected results in which the plants obtained will be intermediate between purple and white. But to his astonishment, he obtained all the plants in the progeny to be purple-colored. Unexpected, right? And this doesn't stop here. On crossing the purple-colored flowers from this progeny with each other, he got another set of astonishing results. If purple-flowered plants are crossed amongst each other, we should obtain which variety? We would get all plants with purple-colored flowers, is what most of us would think. But to his astonishment, Mendel obtained a few plants with white-colored flowers as well. So on an average, he obtained 75% plants with purple flowers and 25% plants with white flowers. How could this be possible now? Let's try and understand these results in the next part.